construction time. It shut down mid-March. It slowed down a lot. Came to a complete stop in April, early 1st of April. We did have an unfortunate incident on our site with a worker getting injured in the construction area, which caused another delay for us. And that's all. He's fine, fortunately. Everything's okay, but it slowed us down, and because that back end of the barn was supposed to be done at the end of March. It's not going to be done now, probably till the end of June. So until that end of the barn is fully complete, we're gonna our training and qualifying will be later in the afternoon, and of course it won't affect racing at all. So once the main construction showed you at the beginning, which is our new simulcast area and banquet facilities, which is the renovation of the old lighthouse, that probably won't be completed till into August, but that won't affect our ability to race, especially since we won't have spectators at the track. So,
right.
But we need to get the back end of the barn completed so that we can that'll open us up for more training opportunities and maybe more reasonable times for qualifiers later in the season.
So if there's I guess a small silver lining, the fact that you won't have spectators, certainly in the near future, maybe if there was ever going to be a good time for that, it'll be when you have ongoing construction happening. And just quickly, the reason for the expansion, Jamie, on that side of the property, it's to do with overall expansion of the gaming floor. Is that correct?
Yeah. So. Great Canadian with her Elements brand took over the site a couple of years ago, and last summer, for fans that were at the track last summer would have noticed that they were under construction. So they did a 12,000 square foot addition to the building, which was for additional slot machines. That was completed about late fall, so just after we actually finished racing, their construction was completed. But through their process, we did give up some space in the building. We give up office space to them, and we also, as customers who were at our site last year noticed, we lost our simulcast area on the main floor. So we had to move that up to the second floor last summer. So we're doing a few things. First of all, we're creating new office space. We're creating a new simulcast area for customers. And also we're expanding we're doubling the size of our kitchen. We're doubling the size of our banquet facilities where the lighthouse was previously. And then we're adding some new office space for racing officials and so forth. So it really is partly because we needed to build some new space that we lost in the main building. Second of all, it's an expansion of our banquet business, which of course, even if we were ready to go, there would be no business right now, as you know, because of COVID.
Fleming, we'll turn it over to you next. At Clinton Racetrack, you're year round, but obviously COVID-19 shut the race off. But there are a number of horse people who are stabled there year round. What was the mood like there from the onset of COVID-19 till now, and how have horse people up your way been holding up?
Well, I think everybody right from horse racing are quite concerned just where this is going, how long it's going to take. So horse people are resilient for sure, but there's more horses training here than ever. There's 80 horses training here every day. So they're getting ready to race now.
Sorry, I think I lost you a little bit. So you were set to start, or you will be starting there on June 14th, but that wasn't your original opening day. How many days did you lose with the COVID-19 situation?
We lost a couple in May, and then normally the Clinton Fair would be today, or June 7th. So we lost that date, and we're going to race on June 14th, which is 2 weeks from today. 3 weeks from today, I'm sorry. So we're going to have qualifiers next Sunday and the following Sunday, and then we'll be ready to go on the 14th.
And Mark Horner, for you, again, as we said off the top, you wear many different hats, but first and foremost, you operate a large stable in this part of the province. And just talk about, first of all, the impact on your operation. You were fortunate you were able to keep, I think, all of your staff on, or most of them on, throughout this ordeal.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Greg, in our situation, it's a lot of family involved, and our staff we were able to keep on, and we just a lot of 2 and 3 year olds kind of training on a daily basis. So the few older horses that we had got a little bit of downtime, and we've started them back up. And in order to keep 9 2-year-olds and 7 3-year-olds training every week and getting ready to race, you got to have the staff on hand. So it's been okay so far.
And for those who don't know, tell us a bit about your operation. We're getting a look at it. You're located in St. Mary's, Ontario. Tell us about the size and scope of your operation, and your approach to what you were doing with your horses in the last couple of months to try and keep them ready in anticipation of racing returning.
So we're in St. Mary's. It's a family farm, like I said, and 50 acres there, half-mile track, lots of paddocks, and just, more so, again, with the conditioning of the horses, we did back them down, and I didn't train overly aggressive the 3-year-olds that were ready to qualify, unfortunately, when the COVID hit and shut us down. But I'd say I backed them up to 1 trip a week, and there when I could kind of see we're looking like we're going to get going here in the 1st of June or mid-June or something, we stepped them up the 1st of May, and they're going okay. So we trained a few in the race bike yesterday, and I think the quickest set went in 2-3, and between 2-3 and 2-6 or so. So they're a week or so away, so we'll be ready to go.
And we'll get you to put your COSA hat on for a moment. As a committee member, you talk to a lot of different horse people in especially the southwestern portion of the province. And I'll ask you the same thing I did Ian. What's the mood, the overall mood been like for the last couple of months? And, how are people looking at the return to racing and, the protocols that are going to be in place when they do return?
Sure. I think I talked to a very wide range of horse people. They race in the Jockey Club or Woodbine Mohawk Park or guys that race around Sarnia. So I do get to talk to a lot of them, and grateful for that. And for the most part, they're doing pretty good. They understand what COSA's went through, and they're appreciative of what Ontario racing has done. I know the check. I think in the next week, when everyone starts to get their checks cleaned up there from the previous month, and the next month gets to them, they're going to be okay. I always tell my owners it's better to have a check in the mail than not one at all. So I think for the most part they understand. I've been taking a lot of calls here lately on protocol. I'm going to do a little tour tomorrow and go up and speak to the racetracks there about protocol and just make sure we're all on the same page. And then, horse people is very important. We see it every day. And social distance when you can, and we're not just going to be able to spend any the racetrack. It's going to be in and out. No Lasix, as we all know, and except for at Mohawk. So it's just a lot of calls, Greg, and a lot of conversation on how we're going to do things going forward, and I think it's going to be a work in progress, and it's going to be up to a real big, just an effort between racetracks and collaborative. The horse people, we have to do it for ourselves. If we want to keep racing, like Jim Lawson has stated, it's going to be up to us, and we have to show that we can wear the mask. If you don't, you're ejected. So that's pretty simple. You don't have to wear them on the race. Trainers on the track. So I think we're getting that message out, Greg, and we're all looking forward to it. We're ready to go.
On May 20th, the AGCO came out with their minimum standards, COVID-19 protocols that they are going to be asking the racetracks to adhere to when racing resumes. So we'll touch on that here in a few moments, and we'll try and, I guess, offer some insights as best we can to this point in time as to what things are going to look like for horse people when they come to the racetrack on race day. But again, joined tonight by Jamie Martin from Grand River Raceway, Ian Fleming from Clinton Raceway, and Mark Horner, standardbred trainer as well. If you have some questions for us, and I see a few are coming in, submit them for us in the comment section. We'll try and get to a few of those throughout the show tonight. Just before we rejoin the conversation, we have our first trivia question of the night. And if you want to take part in the trivia as well, you can answer those questions in the comment section as well. And later tonight, we will recap the answers. And from the winning answers, we'll draw one name at random for a $25 COSA gift card, as always. At our first trivia question tonight, we want to know, what year was Clinton Raceway Inc. formed? In what year was Clinton Raceway Inc. formed? And if you think you know the answer, tell us in the comment section. Again, guys, as we talked about it, the AGCL releasing their minimum standards, Jamie. So maybe just an overview of some of the, I guess, major points that horse people are going to have to be aware of when racing returns, some of the things that are going to be in place for them to be able to come and race their horses at your facility.
Sure, Greg. So first of all, the paddocks are going to be limited to essential staff, not only from a racing perspective, but also for employees of the racetrack as well. We're going to try to keep the people down to a minimum. So some tracks will have specific, like 2 people per horse type of thing. I think that may be different from track to track, but I think generally we're going to try to limit how many people are coming. So what horsemen should think about is really it's just the trainer, a groom, and that's really it. Just whatever you need as far as personnel to race the horse, and get in probably an hour and a half before the race, your horse races, and then get out as soon as you can. So that's because one of the next thing is every one of our facilities are a little bit different, but we're all trying to limit the number of people in the paddock at one time. So in our case, it's probably about 6 races. That's about 50 horses. So, some tracks will have 3 or 4 race paddocks, maybe a little bit different issue. In our case, we don't have any other stabling on the grounds. It's just one large paddock. So that is a reason why we will not be offering the EIPH program at our track until the restrictions are eased, just simply because our Lasix stalls are within the barn, within the paddock, and we can't have horses and horse people there for 4 hours. As simple as that. The other thing is, in our case, we don't have a lot of Lasix horses anyway, so it wasn't. If we had a lot of Lasix horses like they do at Mohawk, we probably would have to try to accommodate them somehow. But since we don't, it's something for, at least at this point, we don't need to worry about. So kids, not allowed. So 16 and under, whether they're licensed or not, shouldn't come to the racetrack at this point. And so the racetracks will have screening at their stable gates. Everyone will need to have a face mask. they should bring them with them. And so when you get to the stable gate, there'll be a series of questions that someone's going to ask you, and then they're going to do a temperature check with a no-touch thermometer. I'm pretty sure every track is going to be having that in place. I think that's a requirement of AGCO, and all the tracks have a and then that's, the tracks are going to be implementing very strict cleaning procedures. In our case, we would traditionally have qualifiers before the races on Wednesday. I think we can do that to start, simply because qualifiers, then they get out, another group of horses come in to race. We just can't properly clean the paddock and to make sure it's safe for the race night. So we'll be doing qualifiers on different days, and I think you'll see that with a bunch of racetracks. We'll look at when they conduct training qualifiers so that to properly clean the paddock. Of course, we need to have distancing in place at the tracks, and in our case, we're changing where that you normally you'd have the first race and the second race each other. We're not going to be doing that. They'll be spaced out so that it just will limit activity. And the other thing I should itself that anybody going into the test barn definitely has to have a mask on, and it'll be different options for your hands. It's either gloves. I know having sanitizers applied to your hands before you go in the test barn is acceptable, and that's what we'll be doing at our site. Although we will have gloves for people that prefer that. But we need to make sure that we're following all protocols with the test barn, because that would be one of our weakest links if we have an issue in the test barn. We certainly can't. So there'll be a fair bit of scrutiny over protocols for folks going in the test barn, not only just the paddock but the test barn itself. So those would be. At a high level, I think they're pretty well known. Every facility is a little bit different, and so how they manage it will be a little bit different. But it's going to be a lot different for all of us. But it's what we have to do to make sure that we can conduct racing safely.
Yeah. And Ian, Jamie mentioned it. Each facility in the province is different, so. Yeah, how different is your track and your paddock setup at Clinton, for example, than Grand River? And what's it going to mean for you in terms of additional staffing and that type of thing to make sure that the protocols are adhered to?
Well, Greg, we kind of got lucky at Clinton for stalls. We've got the Reach Center right beside us that has a lot of stalls we're able to use. So we're in pretty good shape that way. And as Jamie said, most of the protocols are the same. The basic protocols are the same everywhere. Just little things will be different at different tracks. And there won't be there's no place for drivers to change, for example, and trainers, their vehicle will be the driver's room for them. And we'll need some extra people for the screening and keeping the place clean, but we're prepared to do that. And the horse people are prepared to follow the protocols because everybody wants to get back to racing. So I don't anticipate, I think everybody kind of knows what's required, and it's not perfect, but we'll do that for a while and hope that at some point spectators will be allowed back in.
And as we look at the protocols, I think we can take some comfort in the fact that, and I'll throw this to Mark next, that before racing was paused in the province, the last few cards racing in London, here at Mohawk Park, at Flamborough, a lot of these protocols had already been put in place by the respective tracks. I think it's a little more robust now in terms of the social distancing that's going to be expected. But Mark, I think tracks were doing a pretty good job. So I would agree it's not going to be a big leap, to take these steps. And talk about it from a horse person's perspective. What advice would you give your fellow horse people, as someone that I think would have been there maybe the last night or two here in London, as an example? What advice would you give to horse people as they prepare to race in this new reality for the next little while?
I think first off, you're right, Greg. We started, at Mohawk and at London, and we got through that good. We can expect more of the same with the questions at the stable gate. Of course, we're all going to be wearing masks now this time around. That's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to have to be done. I know we're looking at different face coverings or what have you. We thought maybe cover would be an option, but now they've made clear nose and mouth actual mask. So that's going to be I know it's going to be a problem for some, but we have to just buck it up here for a little while and wear your mask. And I know we did very well before we got shut down, and I know we can do this again. It's a simple procedure, one trainer, one groom per horse. If you even have a couple of horses, maybe you can bring one groom to do those two horses. And I know that we've been talking with all the racetracks to accommodate. Ian probably is, don't put me in the first and 10th, Ian. So that's going to be Ian's job to kind of maybe place closer together. And so that's going to be part of that. And just, it's going to be a struggle for a little while. So we're ready to do it, and everybody keep your cool, and let's race some horses. And
all right, I think we have our first question of the night, and it comes from Jack Darling. So we'll get that queued up. And who will be allowed on site to watch the races when we do begin racing? And here it is. Are owners going to be allowed anywhere on the racetrack grounds to watch their races at any of the tracks if they practice social distancing? Probably not, but Jamie, maybe I'll direct this at you and get your interpretation on what you think will be allowed and won't be allowed when we return.
Yeah, so I think the short answer is no. Initially, there are some tracks where, especially the smaller ones, maybe in small towns, that they really can't. If you went to the far turn of that racetrack, I'm thinking of Dresden, where I'm from, how they're going to keep you from doing that, right? So there'll be some challenges, but I think the short answer is no. You should watch the races from home.
All right, and thank you to Jack for that. I believe we have another question, Curtis. If you want to bring that up. And again, we thank you for submitting your questions, and we'll try and get to as many as we can tonight during the show. Anthony McDonald, not sure if anyone can answer this, but will stakes races begin right away for 3-year-olds, or will there be a soft start to racing as missed stakes get rescheduled like other jurisdictions? Maybe direct that one at Ian to try and answer as best you can at this point.
Sure, Greg. The first stakes are going to be rescheduled till later in the season, but the 2-year-olds won't be affected at all because they don't start till July. And the 3-year-olds, when the first one's canceled in May, the next sire stake isn't until late June. So those ones that are in May are going to be scheduled later in the summer. That's going to be released here in the next couple of days. But the 2-year-olds won't be affected. And the sire stakes will start, I think it's the 3rd week in June is the first one.
And Ian, as you look back even a few weeks ago, and we're starting to contemplate what could happen this year, and so much uncertainty, getting back into action in June and just a slight pushback on some of those 3-year-old stakes, do you think we've come out of it pretty well, all things considered?
I think it's obviously it's been horrible for all of society. But as far as racing horses goes, if we can get back doing it safely here in June, the racing should continue on this summer as it normally would. I don't. It'd be nice if we could get some customers in towards the end of the summer, but we're going to start out without, and hopefully things go well and everyone can stay safe. That's the key thing. It's important to race horses, but we've got to keep people safe too. So we've got to do what the government people tell us to do, and hope all of society starts getting better.
Absolutely. So no spectators when we start back. So the onus is going to be on, presenting the races the best way we can online. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show as well. But Mark, I just want to get a quick thought from you as a trainer and talk about the stake schedule. And you have a 3-year-old colt who you have high hopes for this year. What impact with a horse like that? Has it set you back much?
Well, actually, I trained him in about quick tour 210 3 weeks ago, Greg, and started thinking he was getting a little too close. And I think the first stake for him is going to be July 3rd, a gold possibly. So, I mean, if he stays good till then. So I've actually backed him up. He made a little bit of money last year, and he'd start real tough right off the bat. So he'll have to get a couple starts into him, and look at the schedule. It's not the 2-year-old guys and the 3-year-olds, the ones that are ready to go now, you're going to have to keep them in tune for another month, which isn't a problem, I'm sure. And some that aren't quite there yet, you'll have time to get them ready for I think around the 27th of June and around the first week of July that they start going. So no, should be good overall.
Yeah. I want to ask Jamie, and an amendment recently announced on the qualifying standard here in Ontario as well. Just your thoughts as a track operator on that, and what I guess the genesis of that was, given the situation.
Okay, thanks, Greg. So I understand that horse players want as much information as possible when they're betting on a horse. But that said, these are unique times, right? So I think for horses that were racing in the winter, and the AGCO has said since February 1st, that they don't need a clean line to start racing in early June, essentially to 60 days. So, but I don't have an issue with it. I think it's, like I said, it's a unique situation. It's not ideal. Some jurisdictions are still requiring qualifying, but they've been able to get going a little sooner. I think we need to start the economy going with horse racing, and so I think that the right thing to do is to get these horses in the box. And for horse players that have a concern about that, betting a horse that hasn't raced in 3 months, they can watch, right? So they have options, and they'll get their clean line, whether it's in a fair mutual start or a qualifier, one or the other. So because I think qualifiers are important for horses that haven't raced, for horses that have issues staying on gate, especially at a start. But for horses that race week in and week out, they're not, the trainers are not going to put them in the box unless they're ready to race. And so we rely on trainers to do that. I think I often say to customers, if I have a horse that drops 4 seconds from one pair of mutual start to the next, I get a lot of complaints. When I have a horse that drops 4 seconds from a qualifier to their first pair mutual start, which is common, I get no complaints. So I understand where customers would like to see qualifying races before they and have a clean line within 30 to 45 days. But as I said, these are unique situations, and everyone does have a choice. If they just don't feel comfortable betting those races, they can just back off and watch.
Yeah, I concur, Jamie. And if there are horse players, serious horse players watching tonight, please don't take that as us dismissing what you're saying. We certainly understand, but I think it's such a unique time. We just want to get these horses racing sooner than later, and for the real core customer, a real core horse player, as Jamie said, you might want to sit out that first start. We never encourage that as track operators. We want people wagering on the races, but if you have to do it to feel more comfortable betting the next time out, then by all means. But Ian, on the reverse side, from your perspective, I'm sure that news was roundly welcomed by horse people.
Require 200 qualifying races. So that would take another couple weeks to get accomplished. So this is welcome news. And horse people, they're not going to the track to intentionally finish last, that's for sure. So they're gonna have the horses trained. They were training them out here, training them right at racing speed. So they're gonna have those horses ready to go, and they welcome the chance to put them right into race rather than having to take a week and qualify. And under the circumstances, I think people understand it's certainly worth a try.
All righty. We have another quick question before we go to a commercial break. And this one comes from good friend Don Liska, and wants to know from Jamie, could you hold Industry Day off to a later date to possibly have fans for it? And I know that's a tough situation, Jamie. You've still got a little bit of time, probably fingers crossed, hoping you're going to be able to have spectators. What is your thought as you look ahead to Industry Day at this point?
So yeah, thanks for that question. So I would say it'll be pretty tough for us to change the date. The 2-year-old, so there are, of course, Battle of Waterloo and Battle of the Bells are Ontario sired restricted stakes. The schedule is pretty jammed, so it'd be tough for us to move those races. There's other sire stakes tough for us to move. I think we run that day. We hope that we are at least have track that day, and maybe some. But if not, we'll be running the day on that day without spectators, and folks will have to watch from home.
And Ian, when you think about Clinton Raceway, such a huge component of the community up there, and so well supported by the community, it's really hard to imagine racing there with no live spectators. Have you got your head around that yet? I'm sure it's not something that you're trying to think about a whole lot, but how different is that going to be for you, especially a track like that with no live spectators?
Yeah, it's not going to be ideal for sure, Greg. It's we had probably 40 people here yesterday standing along the rail watching young horses train. We've got 20 people here every day watching them train, and to tell them in 2 weeks that they can't drive in and watch them train or races. I've talked to them all, and it's they understand they can't, but it's certainly going to seem strange, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and it's tough on the local groups that come out to fundraise there as well.
I was going to say, fundraising is a huge component of what you do as a not-for-profit. How much money have you raised over the years for local charities? Ballpark.
Oh, it'd be $1 million for sure when you tie in Legends Day, what we've done for the hospital, and then the smaller groups that come out every Sunday. So it's certainly going to hurt those groups for this summer as well. But it's going to be a strange summer, no matter where you drive. So if you're over at the lake or over at a racetrack or wanting to go to a sporting event. So we're just going to have to see how it plays out.
Just another example of the domino effect that COVID-19 has had, not only in our industry, but well beyond, and it affects the entire community, especially somewhere like Clinton. Getting back to a day like Industry Day, let's switch gears here a little bit. It's always a special day for Mark Horner, and back in 2005, he won the signature event at Grand River, the Battle of Waterloo, with Button Up, who went on to become a real fan favorite, Mark. And got to look at him recently out at the farm. There he is, and he looks fantastic. He's 17 now, is that right?
Yeah, 17, and yeah, he still looks great.
And of course, he won the Battle of Waterloo in 2005, and has had a long and very productive history at all of the signature tracks in Ontario. And he made you $850,000 over the course of his racing career. You stopped with him a couple of years ago, Mark. Just tell us about the story behind that. I think it's remarkable. At the time, thought he was diagnosed with a very serious health issue. Out of now, it appears that's the case. He's had some sort of remarkable recovery. It's incredible.
Yeah, he was actually racing, and he was starting to lose his muscle tone. I think it was over his left hip, Greg, and he raced with it. He ended up going to Guelph, and he was diagnosed with leukemia. Those things, horse like that, you know, it's, you bring them home, and that's where the passion and the heart comes from, right? For a horse like that is, it's great to see him recover, and we missed the 50 wins. We didn't get there, but that doesn't matter. He's living out a great life right now, and we're happy he's doing that.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to just see how fantastic the horse looks at age 17. And as you said, he's enjoying his retirement years, no question about that. And a former winner of the Battle of Waterloo, so a true Ontario success story. Button Up. We will take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more with our special guest here on COSA TV in just a moment. And welcome back to this edition of COSA TV. I'm Greg Blanchard, joined tonight by Jamie Martin from Grand River Raceway, Ian Fleming of Clinton Raceway, and Mark Horner, past chair of Standardbred Canada, prominent horse trainer, a committee member at both Ontario Racing and COSA. Great to have them all with us tonight as we talk about the return of live racing here in the province. Let's get to our second trivia question before we continue. We just had a look at Button Up a few moments ago, romping around in the field, enjoying his retirement in St. Mary's, Ontario. We talked about him winning the 2005 Battle of Waterloo, and he would come back to win the Industry Day Preferred Pace how many times in his career? So he would return to Grand River on Industry Day several times throughout the course of his career. How many times did he win the Industry Day Preferred following his 2005 Battle of Waterloo victory? You can leave your answers again for us in the comment section, and we'd love to hear from you and submit your questions there for us as well. As we continue on, getting a look at the week ahead, it's going to be a busy one for you, Ian. Race office reopens tomorrow, is that right?
That's right. Yep, tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and we'll be taking some qualifying entries and training entries, and looking forward to getting back at it.
All right. So you operate a centralized race office. You oversee race office duties for several tracks in the province. For those who don't know, can you give us an idea of the size of your race office, how many people, et cetera, and how many tracks you look after?
Yeah, we're doing 8 tracks, and we probably do over 400 draws a year, and there's 3 of us, so it keeps us hopping, that's for sure. But it's a lot of people are calling in to enter at 2 or 3 different tracks, and we're seeing a big spike in the online entries, people signing up for that. So we're thinking that could be help for the horse people and help for the tracks coordinating it. So we're looking forward to see how that works and what the horse supply is like this summer. It's hard to say. There'll be some horses have been quit with probably, but there's a lot of horses haven't raced for the last 2 or 3 months, so they should all be fresh and ready to go, I would think.
All right. Well, you're going to be a popular guy over the next couple of weeks. That is for sure. You talked about Standard Canada's new self-serve system that's now in place. And in fact, they've unveiled recently self-serve 2.0. Mark, maybe get you to put your Standard Canada hat on here. What's the new service entail? What types of things will it help horse people with?
So if you were involved with the first online format, was you had to input everything. They've upgraded to a format where it remembers the driver that you use, the racetracks you want to race at, makes it a lot more user friendly. It's easy to sign up. You get a username and a password, and I know I didn't think it was a big deal when we got it going, but once I started to use it, it's just fabulous. And you're sitting in your morning coffee, and you just enter online, and it's done, and you don't have to bug Ian on the phone. And we encourage everyone, take 5 minutes and get on this new system. It's quick, it's easy. If you have trouble, call Standard Canada, and the girls will help you out there. Get on that tomorrow morning, and let's get everybody signed up online.
And available on all different platforms, smartphones, tablets, laptops, desktops, so easy to use, as Mark said, and easy to get signed up. I think you need a Gmail account, and I believe that's really about all you need to get started. Ian, from the race office perspective, does it make...
What's that? Sorry, Greg.
I was just going to say, does the self-serve system make the race office job easier?
I think it will. Once we get, we had some in March, people were starting to use it, and it's somewhat helpful. And I think when we get more people signed up, it'll really be helpful. And people can put comments in there. If a class doesn't fill, they can move to a different class. So I think it'll be very helpful, and people will be able to manage. They can enter all their horses the first of the week, and then they don't have to worry about getting a busy signal or calling in late or something like that. So I think they'll find it quite helpful, and the racetrack will as well.
All right. And speaking of people entering horses, I think we have another question to get to, Curtis, if you want to bring that one up. This one coming from Brad Lichty. With the possibility of less racing opportunities, will each class of horse have an equal opportunity to race? Ian, we'll direct that one to you.
Yes, I would say they will. There'll be there's just as many race dates as there was last year. We're off to a later start, but I think there'll be lots of opportunities for horses of all abilities to race at. So that's certainly what we're hoping, and I think there's going to be enough horses. But my worry would be there might not be enough horses, but I believe there will be to get us through the summer.
And earlier, guys, we talked about the prospect of racing with no live fans, and for both of your venues in particular, the live audience is something that you strive on, and you do really well at attracting. Jamie, but with no fans able to be on site and bet on track, you're looking to try and enhance your broadcast in some ways. Can you tell us what you're doing?
Yeah, so we do uplink on the Roberts system. So our signal is distributed by them, but it is in standard definition. It's a compressed. So we do produce an HD signal at the track, which unfortunately, other than the horsemen in the paddock, will not be able to see it. So what we've done, similar to what Western Fair has done and other tracks have done, is we're going to run a HD signal direct on our website. So folks can go to, you can get our signal lots of places, whether it's hbibet.com. If you're a Roberts television customer, you can get it through them. You can certainly get the Roberts SD feed on our site, but you can also get an HD feed on our site as well. And I would say one of the issues with the HD feed, it may be a bit delayed, but maybe you can comment on this, Greg, with their Western Fair experience. It's not that much delayed from the standard definition signal from Roberts.
Yeah, very little, maybe a second at the most. So yeah, certainly not prohibitive at all. And I guess the good news for you, Ian, tracks like yourselves that stream and don't uplink, and people often wonder why the internet feed is so clear from tracks like Clinton, Hanover, and these places. It's because it is going directly to the computer. So that's good news for you. You've got a step taken out of the equation for you. But talk about handle, a little bit different when you talk Grand River and Clinton. How much, or percentage-wise, would you say the live on-track handle amounts to at Clinton?
Well, most time we had a good thing going last year where our signal in the States, we had some people betting on it, and Western Fair would carry it. It'd be close to half and half. So we're going to try and enhance it a little bit, maybe do some comments to try and help the on-track handle, because the big problem for all the tracks isn't going to be just the fact there's no customers on track. For now, there's no customers at any of the champions or simulcast locations. So I think people are a little misled thinking how much they may bet on these races. It's going to be all internet wagering. So none of the champions are open. There won't be simulcasting at Western Fair and Mohawk. And so it's going to be whatever we can gather up online, but it's no simulcast locations is certainly going to hurt some.
Yeah. Amy, a different scenario for you. The percentage on track is far less than it would be at Clinton, but your overall handle substantially higher. So you've got a leg up in terms of distribution around North America. Are you working with Woodbine? Any discussions on ways to try and enhance that even further while there's a bit of an opportunity right now?
Yeah, we talked about whether our schedule, like especially a Friday night card, that was geared towards on-track attendance. So we did talk about whether it made sense to look at different days, maybe, because if you're not having customers at the track, what difference does it make what day you race, right? So, but we've decided to stay with the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings. What we've talked to Woodbine about is, so we do quite a bit of on-track handicapping contest stuff at our place. So we're going to move all that online. So so on Wednesday nights, we would do the, as Western Fair would do once we do a promotion with HBI where there's a handicapping contest through HBI. And so we're going to do that every night. So we're going to increase our engagement with handicapping customers with contests. And to hope to, for those that like handicapping contests to keep them engaged in our product.
Now, Mark, I'll get a comment from you on this. You've often, I know, in my time here in London, running the racetrack here, you were always kind of a go-between guy between myself, our management, and horse people. Talking about things like drags, path, post, and placement of races and schedules, right? Trying to drive handle, and now that's going to be even more critical. Do you think horse people, in general, have a good understanding of why these things are implemented?
I would like to think that they do, but I constantly am reminded that maybe we've done a poor job at explaining why the handle is important now, and it obviously is. First and foremost, I love seeing a big handle because that means somebody's betting on our races. So I try to keep it simple with people because it can get confusing as to where our money comes from, why the handle matters. We have a good handle on it. We know what is what, and trying to explain that is difficult at times. But I think that the drag it's hard on horse people because we're getting home at 11:30 at night and half an hour in between races. It's as slow as it is for the fans. It's slow for us as well. So that's why we're always on you, Greg, about the drag, and I believe you take credit for implementing the drag at Western Fair, and Jamie is followed at Grand River, and so on and so forth. So it's part of the sport. I suppose we're not going to get that changed anytime soon, but right down to I'd just like to mention, as far as handle, going in from a shutdown, it's important for our sire stake program that's where we get our funding from, is that handle. So hopefully we can double it or whatever when we get back and make up some money that we've lost going forward.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it. I mean, there are a lot of little factors that go into to driving handle. I learned a lot, from Ian when I first started in London, just on the importance of race placement in the simulcast landscape. And Ian can look at it from two perspectives, and I think he would agree. You don't want to keep horse people any longer than you absolutely have to, but you're trying to balance that with maximizing handle. And Ian, you have a totally different approach. I know. When you're at Clinton on a Sunday afternoon, it's a totally different audience, right? And you set your post times totally differently.
Yeah, when it's strictly, a lot of it's the live crowd, and we try and get as many tellers as we can. So we try and get them run off a little bit quicker, actually, because at a place like Clinton, if it's a hot Sunday afternoon, people don't want to be there. They don't want to be there 4 or 5 hours. But totally different at London on a Wednesday night, where they might be flirting with $1 million. If you got to keep the shop open a little longer for more business, you do that. So it's a lot of it's the situation you're in.
And Jamie, I want to ask you, I don't think there's probably few people better qualified to tackle this question than yourself. And maybe just try and explain for horse people and just people in the industry in general. I don't think everybody has a full understanding of how the purse money flows currently versus how it did when we were in the SARP era, for example. What are the differences between now and how it flows to racetracks now?
Well, so really since 2014, our purses have been somewhat fixed, and Woodbine has initially took on the risk, and now that those purses are essentially funded by OLG, where they, because back before, as you mentioned, Greg, each track had their own HMA, they ran their own wagering market in their locale, and generated revenues towards purses and towards their operations from that. So what's changed is now the entire province is the Woodbine HMA. All the wagering revenue goes to them. With that, they've they've guaranteed operating funds for racetracks and certain levels of purses, which is also enhanced heavily by OLG. So, but Mark made a good point about the HIP program. The HIP program is mostly funded from the 3% tax on the wager. And so, the Sire Stake program can be materially affected if wagering is decreased. And of course, we had no wagering for the last two and a half months. So, so that's going. It'll be hard. It'll be really hard to make that up, right? So, because I think the wagering is probably off about 50% because we're just online. So we really need that bricks and mortar wagering to help us along. But yeah, so and I think this has been said before that there shouldn't, for as far as overnight purses and stakes programs, core track stake programs, not including the Sire Stake program, those purses should be fine. They shouldn't change from what's been because it is essentially funded by government, and so horse people can be confident in that. Now, the longer this goes, it's going to be just tougher, right? It's going to be tougher if the casinos remain closed, because OLG gets a lot of their funding from casinos. I mean, it's everything's just going to be more difficult. But I would say for this year, for overnight purses and for the racetrack's own stake programs, they should remain unchanged.
All right. Well, we appreciate you walking through that for us. Let's go to our third and final trivia question tonight, and then we'll get to a couple of more questions after that. Our final trivia question of the night: which trainer with a minimum of 100 starts currently leads the Canadian UDR standings for 2020? Who's the top percentage trainer with minimum of 100 starts currently in Canada? And if you think you know the answer, pass it along in our comment section. And again, we're going to recap all of the questions at the end of the show, and we will draw one name randomly from the winning answers. We've got another question coming your way, this time from Don Johnson. And Don asks, what's going to be the protocol with regards to drivers wearing masks? At what point can a driver take it off? Maybe let Ian tackle this one. What's your interpretation of the protocols in this area?
I would say, Greg, that everyone needs to wear a mask from the time they get on the property, but the drivers, when they're on the racetrack, they won't need it. They're not required to wear one when the race is being conducted. But going to the track and in between races, they'll need one on. But during the actual race, they won't be required to have a mask on. More as a safety precaution than anything. If they have to, if a horse makes a break or something, they want to be very clear to the other drivers that there's an issue. So, yeah. But other than that, everybody would be required to wear one.
Okay. Jack Darling has a question for us. Thank you, Jack. Wondering, at a place like Hanover, can they drive into the parking lot and watch the race from there? That's a good question. Maybe in that gray area, I'm not sure. Jamie, any idea?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough I don't think it's fair to expect the racetrack to prevent that, right? So, and actually even our place, I mean, the parking lot's not closed. You can pull into the parking lot, you can park, you can walk up to the fence. Not in front of the grandstand where that area is going, that fence is going to be locked, but you're a little farther down and you could stand there, right? So we're going to try to discourage that because we don't want any issues, not only with our regulators who are expecting us to keep spectators away, but also our local health units. We don't want them to have to respond to incidents at our place because of not appropriate physical distancing. But Jack's right. At a place like Hanover's going to have a hard time keeping people from not within their direct grandstand and in front of their grandstand, but for a place that's in town like that, it's going to be hard to prevent that.
Yeah. And Ian, I assume it's going to be a similar scenario for you at Clinton.
It is, but I think both at Hanover and Clinton, the goal is going to be to have those gates locked up and people not parking in there. And we'd love to have people in there watching, but if there gets to be a problem, like you saw the pictures of the beaches and parks in Toronto yesterday, and what happened there, and if that was to happen, if the parking lot got crowded with people watching, that would reflect poorly on us, and the health unit wouldn't like it, and Ontario Racing wouldn't like it, so, and the Premier wouldn't like it. So we're going to do our best to keep things cleaned up, but it's not going to be a picnic for sure.
Yeah. Another question coming from Don Liska again. He's enjoyed taking pictures for several years on Industry Day and does a wonderful job. We see a lot of his photos online. Wondering if there will be any photographers allowed to take pictures this year. And likely too early to answer that one, Jamie. As you mentioned, at least initially, probably essential personnel only, maybe a few people able to be there by that point in time.
Yeah, hopefully. But at this point, like, we don't intend to have a track photographer. Even I don't think we're bringing horses back to the winner's circle. We need to decide that, but I'm thinking we are not. But hopefully by August, if we are allowed to have any sort of spectator involvement, then we definitely will have people there allowed to take pictures for sure.
Yeah. Mark, let's talk horses a little bit here. You've had one of the more successful stables in this part of the province for a number of years, and had many nice horses in your care over that time. We talked about Button Up moments ago. You've had a horse by the name of the Masters, who was a good one for you. Was he one of those first ones that really started to put you on the map? And certainly in state races?
Yeah, well, he was definitely the first gold winner I had. And yeah, he was a nice colt. I mean, before that, my father raised a big stable of young horses and so on. So I grew up through it. But yeah, he was the second horse sent to me by Ray Webb, and he was a great owner for me for 20 years. So the horse did me a lot of good, and Ray had a lot of good horses, one in Forster, Vandango Hanover, several others that he did pretty good on. So he was a good owner, and that horse started that. And unfortunately, we lost him early, but he was a good campaigner and a real nice raceway horse too.
You had another one named Dream Luck that you started with. He went on to make over $500,000. Another top mare, Cassidy Sealster, made close to $300,000. But in more recent years, a speedster named Francis Getty certainly was an exciting horse, and a mare called the Joy Luck Club. How about a status update on what she's up to these days?
She's currently checked in full to Captain Crunch, and she's in New Jersey for now, and we'll see if she stays or how long she stays down there. But reports are she's happy and healthy, and hopefully going to be a mama.
And
really excited and looking forward to that.
Sure. Another popular mare that you've raced in this part of the province last few years, a mare by the name of Pinky Tuscadero, and I understand she's going to be a mom fairly soon as well.
Yeah, it seems like the broodmare band is growing relatively quickly. We got about 18 horses that are under the racing age or mares, so we're getting a lot around that are weanlings, yearlings, and Pinky is in foal to all bets off. So hopefully for her, she was a big heart and a real nice mare to race around the small tracks, and you can make a living doing it if you have the right horses.
Yeah. and a broodmare you're associated with that's been a very successful mare by the name of Pentecostal as well. And of course, you're involved as well with the London Selected Yearling Sale. And maybe we just get a quick thought as we look ahead to that. You know, we're just planning on the racing season starting, but you do have to look down the road into the fall and the yearling sales. And what's the status of that right now? Are you looking at Plan B options in the event that you're not able to have a live sale?
Absolutely. We have been working real hard and exploring a lot of options, and no decisions as of yet, but like everything else has been on the table. Everything's on the table. We're exploring virtual, what it would look like, what other sales are going to do, Lexington, Harrisburg, and been in contact with them. And Anne's working real hard on you know, we're back and forth on ideas and how we can set up London. As you know, it's a hospital right now, and I don't think that after spending $1 million setting that up, that they're going to tear that down anytime soon. So I would think that the proactive thing to do for the sale company is to look after their consigners and the breeders throughout the province, and have a real hard look at a virtual type sale this year and how that would look like. And we are looking at that, and we're checking everything out there, and it's constant, and I think it's could be something for the future. You know, it's a different look and a different feel to how one would sell, and it's going to be interesting. And yes, we're working on it every day.
Well, we'll keep updated on that. We'll check in with you down the road with yourself and Ann Stratman and the other folks involved to find out what happens with that as we look ahead. But one other horse we wanted to talk about is a colt that you certainly have high hopes for this year and are excited to get back into action. And we're going to have a look at him in his last start of his 2-year-old campaign last year, the Grassroots Championship, a Mach 3 colt named Quick Tour. Didn't win on this night, but a very good second in the $75,000 final. And let's give you a look at that, and then we'll come back and talk more about Quick Tour in just a moment.
The switch, Quick Tour with snap speed again for Wah. Coming through at the inside, the tandem of Mayhem, Hanover, and Day Delight joining the mix outside. National Sport getting position off the gate too. Usurper at the rail, 5th away. 6th floating, looking for a position is My Land early. Then it's back to Poseidon Sealster off stride. Filion just lost. National Sport in the first turn. He made a break. National Sport will plummet to last after that costly first turn mistake. First panel was 26-3, and it's a 2-length lead for a revved up Quick Tour as Wah tries to get him to come back to him now in the second quarter. Quick Tour leads the way. Back into the pocket position. Mayhem, Hanover, Day Delight 3rd. Usurper 4th on the move out of 5th. Here comes My Land first up. Grabbing cover, Poseidon Sealster. He sneaks up 6th outside. Then it's back 7th to Delightful Terror. The final 3, Better Buckle Up, followed by Lose Delight, and National Sport is trailing. Coming up to the midway point. Quick Tour, the one who's got the target on his back. He's put up a 56-3 first half. So as quick as he was off the gate, he came back to Wah, 32nd speed in that second quarter. Great rating. Quick Tour leads them into the final turn. My Land in that first over position. Mayhem, Hanover right there with them from in 3rd. Moving up on the cover from in 4th now. Their outside is Poseidon Sealster. Backed up 5th inside, Day Delight. Spotting it up 3rd over from in 6th, Delightful Terror. 7th at the rail is Usurper. Then Better Buckle Up, Lose Delight, and Trailer National Sport to 3/4 in 124-1. And coming into the stretch after a 27-3 third quarter, it is still Quick Tour up front. Mayhem, Hanover's in the pocket spot, but angling out now to take a clear shot at Quick Tour. Quick Tour still there. Here's Mayhem, Hanover getting to him now. Still there, Quick Tour. Mayhem, Hanover gets past his wheel, and he'll win. Mayhem, Hanover converts off the pocket trip from McNair, winning in 151-1.
So there was the Grassroots Championship last year. Just picked off at the wire mark, but one of those races, obviously a little disappointing. You didn't win, but you couldn't be disappointed in the effort of the colt. And how did you put him away last year, and how's he trained back?
So that was his last start. Obviously, we're tickle pink that horse that beat him, Dougie seems to have my number. If I don't use him, he just tortures me all the time. So he got us that night. But, the colt had a great year. Greg, he never drew inside 7, 8, 9, 10. I think the week before in the Elim, he was parked past the half out of the 10 hole and just went a monster mile. And I'm not saying that took much out of him, but the 51 for a 2-year-old late in the year, and the bull goes out the next week, obviously on a different kind of night weather-wise, and goes a full second slower. So we put him away nice after that, and he had a few months off. And one thing, the partners on that horse are just they're incredible people, and they're incredible for the industry. And Rob and Wayne Giles, they have trainers. The list is shorter of who they don't use or haven't used, and they're a great support for the industry. And so they let me train my horses the way I want, and I don't tell them how to sell their vegetables, and they don't bother me with the training. So he's come back really good. Unfortunately, didn't come out of one training 100%, and I just haven't quite figured him out here yet. But he's going to be back, whether it's the next couple weeks or what have you. But he's been in 2-8 and was solid both lines. He's grown up real nice and put some weight on, and he's bulked up quite a bit. So we did pay him into the NA Cup. I know they listed him 50-1, but he's got a quick turn of speed, and I think he's got a big heart. And he showed as a 2-year-old that he can go both ends off the gate and tough it out and park past the half and just no quit. So is it a stretch for an Ontario bred that's from a grassroots to an NA Cup? Well, we'll see. But we're just hoping for some fun and no pressure, and hope he has a good year as a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Well, the good news is an Ontario bred son of Mach 3 won the event back in 2008. So you never know.
Well, he was all right, but
yeah,
he wasn't coming over a grassroots race either. So
not comparing them just yet, but yeah, you've got to be in it to win it, as they say. So you give yourself a chance there. And
the game's built on dreamers, right?
That's right. Speaking of Some Beach Somewhere, one is a career debut in a Battle of Waterloo elimination. Of course, won the final. And looking ahead to that event this year, Mark, do you have anything in your barn that looks like it might be a Battle of the Bells or Battle of Waterloo type participant?
He's touring, he's paid into it, and he's a half brother. He's watching to Quick Tour, and I actually have a little homebred that's probably the best of the bunch, and he didn't have the bankroll to get paid into that one. I didn't think he was going to be good enough. So for my own this year, I only paid the one he's watching in. So we'll be watching from the sidelines likely this year.
All righty, and we want to thank everyone for sending in their comments tonight. Got one here from Moira Fanning, taking a little shot at Jamie. Says she's surprised to see that he's clean shaven. Not sure what that's
about. Just for you, Greg.
You can't buy razor blades, right?
Hello, Moira.
Yeah, we're all struggling to get out and get a haircut and that type of thing. But
I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, trying to keep busy. Someone like you, Ian, I know you're so used to that day-to-day routine and going into the race office early hours of the morning and being there, and then whatever else the rest of the day entails. How much difference has it been from you just on a personal level to get into a new routine?
It's a bit of a struggle for sure. I've got 100 projects I could be doing, but it's kind of hard to get motivated to do them. So I've been but I always was pretty good at that, but I've got even better. So I'm looking forward to getting back on a bit of a routine, and probably after I do that for a while, I want to go back to slowing down, but it'll be good to do something different. That's for sure.
Sure. I'm not sure if we've got another question or not, Curtis. If so, we can bring that up. Okay, Clayton Graham's got one for us. What I gather, we will only have 5 races in the 10-race paddocks. So the 6th can't come in until the 1st leaves, like we used to do with 3 race paddocks. So I guess the question is, will it feel more like that format with the current guidelines and in terms of trying to social distance in the paddocks? Jamie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's sort of right, but it actually isn't a whole lot different than it was before. You know, I think before people would hang out, right? They might go get something to eat. If they had a Lasix horse, they're there for a long time. But for us, usually, because people ask me, are we going to be racing till midnight, right? By dragging the races out to make sure we have enough physical distancing. I don't think so. I mean, usually our first race is leaving the barn when the 7th comes in. It may be a little later than normal, but I expect a 10-race card to finish up shortly after 10 o'clock, which is a little later than we had last year, but not much. So I think the difference will be just the lack of socializing and the lack of just people hanging out, which is a big part of, especially at our place at Grinner, it's a big part of racing horses at our place. But it'll be, as Mark said earlier, we can't have guys with horses in the 2nd race and the 7th race, right? That's not great. I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to avoid that completely, but we just need to make it easier for them. But it's really going to be in and out. So in some respect, your question is correct, but it's actually, I don't think, a lot different than it would have been at our place or lots of other tracks last year.
All right. Well, we're getting close to 9 o'clock. And again, we want to thank Jamie Martin, Ian Fleming, and Mark Horner for joining us tonight. And we'll ask producer Curtis if he's got the poll question results ready yet. If so, we'll fill them. All right. We'll load them up here in just a second and have a look at it. We'll recap the trivia questions as well. And want to remind folks that coming up on next Sunday night, a week from tonight, we'll have our virtual Camluck Classic show, similar to what we did for the Confederation Cup. We'll be reliving past Molson Pace and Camluck Classic events. We'll have a virtual Camluck Classic for you as well as part of that night. And coming up this Tuesday, the Ontario Racing Scratch and Win promotion will launch as well, and that's an exciting initiative. We've been talking about that a little bit in the last few weeks, and that will launch this coming Tuesday. So here they are, the poll question results from earlier tonight. Wanted to know, which driver do you think will win Canada's earnings title for 2020? Doug McNair has a slim lead currently, and 32% think that he will be able to take it wire to wire, so to speak. Other accounts for 30%, Louis Philippois and Sylvain Filion getting some votes there as well. So thank you for taking part in that. Let's recap tonight's trivia questions for you as well. Our first question from earlier tonight wanted to know, in what year did Clinton Raceway Inc. form? And that was back in 1983. The Kinsmen actually started racing in Clinton back in 1970, but Clinton Raceway was formed in 1983. Our second trivia question, we talked about Button Up and his great record at Grand River Raceway over the years. He won the Battle of Waterloo in 2005, and he won the Industry Day Preferred Pace 3 more times in his career. 2007, 2010, came back and did it again in 2012. And as we saw earlier, now at age 17, enjoying a retirement at the Horner Farm in St. Mary's. And the final trivia question, which trainer with a minimum of 100 starts currently leads the Canadian UDR standings for 2020? And the answer is Kelly Horde from Alberta, batting an amazing .553 to this point in the season. And you know, he and everyone out in Western Canada anxious to get back to racing as well. So thank you for taking part in the trivia questions tonight. We'll be drawing one winner from the correct answers tonight for that $25 COSA gift card. Again, a big thank you to these gentlemen for taking some time to join us, Jamie Martin, Ian Fleming, and Mark Horner. Guys, thank you again, and all the best as we look forward to racing this year.
Greg, could I just,
Thanks, Greg.
before we sign off,
Absolutely.
I'd just like to thank a few people, Ian Fleming for one, Bill O'Donnell, Kathy Boughton, Allison and Sarah at Ontario Racing. On behalf of the horse people, thank you very much. The last few months have been a real struggle, and the work that these people did on our behalf is incredible. And I know there's more than that to thank. They know who they are, Lawson, Mr. Lawson and Jessica Buckley. But we all thank you, and thanks for having us on tonight.
All right, great way to end it off. Thanks again, guys, and take care, and we'll see you all soon. Want to remind you as well that tonight the second online auction was held. The new Hoofbid app, which is available on the App Store and Google Play, and all during the month of May. If you sign up for a Hoofbid account, you will automatically be entered for a chance to win $1,000. It's a brand new technology, and it's grown already in the first couple of weeks. They had their second online auction again tonight. For more information, visit hoofbid.com. We thank you again for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you Wednesday night when COSA TV returns here on Facebook Live.
COSA, the Central Ontario Standardbred Association, proudly serving Ontario horse people with integrity and accountability. Collaborative, supportive, helping to ensure a vibrant harness racing industry. Lifetime membership is free and there are many benefits. Become a new member today. COSA, representing the interests of horse people racing at Ontario racetracks. To find out more, visit cosaonline.com.